The big news yesterday is that there was an awful shooting at a Waffle House in Nashville, Tennessee. Chris Enslow over at The Blaze reports on. He says local and federal law enforcement, turns out, knew the man who opened fire in a Tennessee Waffle House early Sunday morning, killing 4 and injuring at least 7 others. They knew him so well that he was arrested last year and had his firearms confiscated. So you might ask, why was this person walking naked into a Waffle House and shooting people? How did he get his firearms? Well, I have the answer for you. The Secret Service said Sunday its agents arrested the killer in July 2016 after he was found in a restricted area near the White House, according to the Tennessean. So it wasn't just that he was arrested. He was arrested by the Secret Service near the White House because what the hell? Okay, Secret Service Representative Todd Hudson said he wanted to set up a meeting with the president, which it turns out is not the way to set up the meeting with the president. Like, really, I know how to set up a meeting with the president. You don't do it by walking up to the White House and saying you want to set a meeting with the president. That hasn't been true since, 1860. The killer, who's reportedly from Illinois, was revoked of his ability to possess firearms following his arrest in Washington. Illinois police also confiscated 4 firearms from his possession, including the AR-15 he used in Sunday's killing, a spokesman for the Nashville police said. Tazewell County Sheriff Robert Huston explained at a news conference that when the sheriff's deputies came to confiscate the killer's firearms last August, his dad was present and asked the officers if he could take possession of the firearms instead. Tazewell said the father was legally able to possess weapons in the state of Illinois, so they turned the weapons over to him, which it turns out was a terrible decision because daddy then gave the guns back to son, so he should go to prison for criminal negligence, no question about it. Authorities say the killer's father later returned the firearms to his son. However, it was not immediately known if there was a Tennessee law that prohibited the killer from possessing the firearms. So, in other words, the cops knew about him, they took his gun away, and then they returned his guns to the father, and the father gave the guns to the son. I don't know what law on the books would prevent any of this. Really, because it's criminal negligence for the father to have given the guns to the son, and the son was already not only barred from having the gun, but had had his guns taken away from him. Now, what's amazing about this is that there is an amazing American hero named James Shaw Jr. who was present at the Waffle House. And as this shooting went on, he decided to charge the shooter. The shooter had an AR-15. He charged the shooter anyway. So here is James Shaw Jr. speaking about this publicly.
When he proceeded to come in, I actually went behind this like a push door, swivel door. And he shot through that door, I'm pretty sure, and I'm pretty sure he grazed my arm. And it was at that time that I kind of made up my mind, because there's no way to lock that door, that if it was going to come down to it, he was going to have to work to kill me. So at the time that he was either reloading or the gun jammed or whatever happened is when I ran through the swivel door. I hit him with the swivel door, and then the gun was kind of jammed up and it was pushed down, so we were scuffling. And I managed to get him with one hand on the gun, and then I grabbed it from him and I threw it over the countertop. And then after that, I was trying to get out the door, and I think he was pretty much in the entranceway, so I just took him out with me, out of the entrance and all the way outside.
Now, that dude's an American hero. I mean, that is an incredible thing, right? To charge a guy with the AR-15, take the gun away from him, and stop the shooting is an amazing thing. Obviously, he's wearing the bandages on his hands because he burned his hands because he grabbed the red-hot barrel of the AR-15, which had been firing. He also, I believe, was grazed by a bullet in the arm, is what it looked like. And he's fine. He went afterward with his family to church to pray. So amazing, amazing dude. Now, you might say, well, this is a story of an American hero stopping a person when he had no resources to do so because this guy is just a hero. And you might say, you know what would have been even better is if this guy had had a gun on him, because then presumably this guy would have walked in with the AR-15, taken the first shot, and you know this guy, this hero right here, would have done something about it, right? This is the kind of guy who would have pulled out his gun and shot the bad guy, hope maybe even saved a couple more lives. Right? You might think that it would have been better if this fellow, James Shaw, had actually had a gun. You would be wrong according to the left. So the left comes up with legitimately the stupidest possible arguments I have ever seen. Like an insane number of stupid arguments have arisen from this, because now the left is making the claim that because James Shaw Jr. was not armed, then now we should expect people to disarm people with guns. Now, this is a little bit different from the argument that was being made just a few weeks ago with regard to AR-15s. That you can't expect an armed school security officer to charge a person with a gun. That if you have a pistol, that you shouldn't be able to shoot somebody with an AR-15, right? They were saying that an AR-15 is so wildly powerful that you shouldn't be able to take down that shooter even if you have a gun. Now they're saying that everyone should be unarmed to take down the shooter or something. Okay, I'm going to show you a series of some of the dumbest arguments you have ever seen. I mean, this is really insane. Even folks on the left who are in favor of gun control should recognize how stupid these arguments are and stay away from them as much as possible if you actually want to win the argument. So here's David Axelrod. David Axelrod was, of course, one of the lead advisors, campaign advisors to President Trump, and then he was in the White House as, was he chief of staff, chief strategist for the White House under President Obama. And here's what he tweeted out, quote, "With yet another mass shooting today, let us give full recognition to Colt, the manufacturer of the AR semi-automatic rifle used in this massacre, for designing such an efficient weapon for mass destruction for commercial use." So this is a really, really bad argument. So the argument that he's making here is that the manufacturer is somehow responsible for the person using the gun to kill people, which is weird because I tweeted back to David Axelrod, full props to the makers of the M4 for generating the firearms used to kill Osama bin Laden. No props to President Obama, right? President Obama made the call, and all we heard about in 2012 was that Osama bin Laden is dead and Detroit is alive. And they took credit for the killing of Osama bin Laden. But according to David Axelrod, it's the gun manufacturer who really gets the credit for the killing of anyone, right? If anyone is killed, it's the gun manufacturer who's responsible for that. So presumably, it is the gun manufacturer that gets to take credit for the Osama bin Laden kill and not Barack Obama. I assume David Axelrod did not agree with that logic, but instead, he is saying such stupid things about gun manufacturers. This is why, you hear this myth that's put out there by the left that there is some sort of loophole for gun manufacturers when it comes to liability, that if someone gets shot, you can't sue the gun manufacturer, that there's some sort of legal loophole that has been enshrined into law. No. Products liability is a well-developed area of Anglo-American common law. And products liability suggests that there are a few types of liability. One is if you design a product that is inherently dangerous and then that product goes off in the inherently dangerous way, then you're responsible for its danger. But rifles are designed to do what they do, and people buy them to do what they do. So there is no failure in design. There's no design flaw when it comes to product manufacturing in an AR-15. And there's also no manufacturing flaw, which would be like you buy a product and then it breaks on you, right? There's no manufacturing flaw. So when people say that the gun manufacturer should be able to be sued, they are able to be sued. If you bought a gun and the gun were to backfire on you and hurt you, for example, you could sue the gun manufacturer for a product's manufacturing claim. Or if the gun were so inherently dangerous that it had a hair trigger, and you pick up the gun and it just goes off because that's the way it was designed, then you have a design flaw and you get to sue the gun company for that. But you can't sue the gun company for making a gun that is perfectly manufactured to specification any more than you can sue a knife company for making a knife that is perfectly manufactured to specification. You can't sue the Ginsu knife company because it cuts things. And it's not the way that this works. But again, blaming gun manufacturers for the evil of individual human beings, it makes no more sense than failing to credit heroes for the individual heroism of human beings. One thing that we should all learn from James Shaw, by the way, this is what folks say in law enforcement, is that if you are in a mass shooting scenario, then charging the shooter sometimes is the best thing that you can do. Obviously, not everybody is given that kind of courage, either by God or has developed it themselves. James Shaw Jr. is one of the people who has developed it. Good for him. So other stupid arguments, a bunch of the students from Parkland started making the same argument, and this is an intensely stupid argument. Emma Gonzalez tweeted out, "The local police say a man at the scene wrestled his gun away. Looks like you don't need to arm a teacher or a resource officer to stop a shooting. There goes the sales pitch for Smith Wesson." No. So the argument, I guess, is that if you have a guy who's super brave and who runs into the face of fire and grabs a gun from someone else, no one needs a gun? So I guess we should disarm the police? Matt Walsh had a great reply to this. He said, "I saw a man eating spaghetti with his hands the other day. That means that no one should have a fork." Like, what is it? What? Like, because, so I guess the solution is that law-abiding people should not have guns, but non-law-abiding people who have guns, we should stop them because we should run in there with our magical bulletproof chests and somehow stop them. This line of argument was repeated ad infinitum yesterday. It was crazy. I mean, I was seeing it all over the internet yesterday. It wasn't just Emma Gonzalez. David Hogg also tweeted this out. The insufferable Parkland survivor who says that everyone who disagrees with him is an evil pig. He says, "So only a good guy with a gun can stop a bad guy with a gun?" And then he tweeted at the NRA. This had 56,000 likes. 56,000 likes. No one said only a good guy with a gun can stop a bad guy with a gun. Okay, what we did say is that there is a much better shot that you are going to stop a bad guy with a gun than you are charging the guy. How many, I would like to see, statistically speaking, how many people who have actually tried to charge a shooter ended up being shot. I'll bet you that the number is pretty high. I'll bet you the number is pretty high. And then it didn't stop with him. Seth MacFarlane, the dope who makes Family Guy, he tweeted out, "Hero James Shaw, a good guy without a gun who stopped a bad guy with a gun." Again, I don't know what you're trying to argue here. Are you trying to argue that it's bad for good people to have guns? Because I promise you, if James Shaw had a gun, he would have used it in far better fashion than